In those days, the crest was in service to the Shade, protectors of Heartvale. I have found that many often think of mercenary companies as grim-faced warriors, facing down terrible odds on glittering plains. Of course, I don't want to dissuade anyone from believing that. The crest has certainly faced its share of desperate last stands and battlefield maneuvers, but not all maneuvers are made on the field. Often, battles are won or lost in the gardens of the rich and powerful. Lord Tefara's fate is a battlefield, make no mistake, where wits and charm are the weapons. I don't know much about our captain, even after 15 years of serving together in the crest. But he must come from a life that brushed against nobility, considering his facility in dealing with them. The lieutenant is even more mysterious, though I have seen her manipulate a room with only a few words. I suspect her madness, as they call it, is simply a game that she plays. As for me, I am here to listen and record the deeds of the crest. As for the other two who journey with us, where there is potential for success, there is the possibility of failure. For all our sakes, their part of this mission is the most dangerous and the most delicate. Exposure here will lead to uncomfortable questions for the crest, not to mention retribution for our audacity. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. On this week's episode, Benn and Arid attempt to blend back into the party before anyone notices they're gone. Find out what happens on episode 17, A Fate to Remember. Benn and Arid, after arriving at the party with the captain, lieutenant, and analyst of the crest, broke away from the gathering and made their way into the main house. They managed to bypass a guard and get into the gallery, where the Eye of Vargosh was housed inside of a vault. They managed to overcome the safeguards that were protecting the artifact and remove it without alerting anyone. They then made their way to the roof, where Arid used his magic to send the artifact in a box over the hedge wall and into the street, where Iron Gull and a few other crest members were waiting to recover it. They managed to do all of this without being spotted by any guards. However, in that last moment when Arid was sending the artifact across the border of the estate, he sensed some power waking up and taking notice. And he recalled the times before when he had felt some attention focused on him as he has performed magic in and around the estate. Having fulfilled their part of the mission thus far, Benn and Arid make their way back downstairs. Now, I think they are going to have to try and get past the guards one last time to re-enter the courtyard without being seen. And once again, I am going to rely on Benn to take the lead here with a face duress, and this is plus steady. And I want to take a look at his moves. When you are being chased, searched for, or otherwise trying to make yourself scarce or unseen, roll plus steady. So it's going to be rolling the same basic thing, but there are some slightly different effects. And I think this is a good place to use it because we don't know yet if the guards have been alerted. And in fact, that sounds like a great question for the Fate chart. So we are still in this scene where they are infiltrating the party and stealing the artifact. So our chaos factor is 7. And I think it is very unlikely that the guards have been alerted to look out for someone. This magical awakening sort of just happened, and I don't know that it's fast enough for the guards to be alerted. So I'm going to roll my percentile dice and compare it against our Fate chart and see if the guards have been alerted. Here we go. 78 is a no, so the guards have not been alerted. So because the guards haven't been alerted, I think there's not a whole lot of danger of them like being caught by a group of guards. So if for some reason, he fails this sneakiness roll, then I think they're going to be discovered by a guard, but not necessarily by like a group of guards who are trying to hunt them down. Before Benn rolls his Like a Shadow in the Darkness, I'm going to go ahead and have Arid attempt to assist him. So when you are in a scene with another PC and you help or interfere with their move, describe how you're doing it, and then roll plus whatever stat is appropriate. If you're helping using intelligence, roll plus sly. Interfering using your strength, roll plus fierce. So I would say that Arid might use magic here in order to deflect some of the attention from them. But I think he's trying to avoid that because of this waking awareness that he senses. So instead, I'm just going to roll on sly as he is using his intellect to give Benn recommendations on their route based on his knowledge of like nobles and architecture. And it may seem a little weak, but I think it works. So we're going to roll 2d6 plus 2 for Arid to help out. There it is. Double ones. So that's 2 on the dice plus 2 is a 4. So last episode, I didn't do anything with Benn's failure to assist on Arid's magic roll, but that was because he rolled oh so well. So I'm going to once again roll on Benn's and see how well he succeeds or doesn't, and then that will determine how much he's hindered by Arid. So again, we're making the move Like a Shadow in the Darkness for Benn, and this is a Black Hood specific move, and we're rolling plus 2 on this with no help from Arid. Let's find out what happens. 7 on the dice plus 2 is a 9. So on a 7 to 9, choose 1. Those looking for you position themselves within striking distance. Those looking for you mistake someone else for you. Those looking for you are distracted by something else that's equally pressing. You stumble across something interesting or important as you hide or escape. So I think they're distracted by something else that's equally pressing. So Benn and Arid are going to make it back into the party without being noticed. But because I didn't get a complete success, because I got a mixed success, I'm going to say that Arid's attempt to assist is going to have some effect on them. So I'm going to roll on my MC move table that I've made up based off of the sort of standard MC moves and see what we get. 3. Give them word of whisperings behind their back. Okay, so I think what this looks like is as they are creeping through the hallways and making their way back towards the party, they come across a couple of guards who are talking in a hallway. They are having a conversation about the Crest mercenaries who are attending the party. And one of them is talking about how Lord Defara has given orders to keep an eye on the Crest that are there, because since he didn't hire them, he is worried that someone else might have hired them to do something. So I think there is some suspicion on them. And because of that, I think that there is more potential than ever for there to be some sort of difficulty in the Crest getting out of this party unscathed. But Benn and Arid make their way past these guards as they're talking, and they make it back into the courtyard where there is still dancing going on. I think they were only really gone for maybe 10, 15 minutes. And so there's still dancing and conversation going on. And Benn and Arid look around for one of the officers of the Crest that they can report into. Now, here's the question. Are any of the officers available for a conversation, or are they all engaged in conversations? I think it is 50-50. So again, our cast factor is 7, and our percentile dice look like this. 75, which is just barely a yes. So one of the officers is available. I'm going to roll a d6, and 1 to 2 is going to be the captain, 3 to 4 is the lieutenant, 5 to 6 is Saga the analyst. 2, the captain is free. So they look around, and Benn and Arid see the captain standing beside this fountain, sipping on some sort of sparkling drink. And he is looking around, sort of surveying the dance floor. At the moment, there's nobody immediately engaged in conversation with him. And Benn is going to look over at Arid and say, I'm going to go report in to the captain. Arid says, very good. I feel that presence here. I am going to try to make myself scarce. Benn nods and says, good luck, and is going to head towards the captain. While Benn is making his way over to the captain to report in, I think it would be a shame if we missed this opportunity to spend a little bit of time at this party. So as he's making his way across the courtyard where this party is going on, I think he is passing in and around all of these groups of people that are talking. And I think this is an opportunity to see if he picks up any more information as he's going through this part of the party. There's dancing going on in the middle of the courtyard, and around the outskirts of this courtyard are all of these small groups of people who are talking and sharing drinks and laughter. There is music playing, of course, and the fountain where the captain is standing is on the far side of the courtyard. So as Benn is making his way around, let's see who he bumps into on his way. There are a number of important people present here at the grand fête of Baccio de Fara, including members of the Council of 12. So I'm going to start off by asking the fate chart, does Benn see the Dux himself? And I think it is probably 50-50. 8 on the dice, which on our chaos rank of 7 is an exceptional yes. So I think he sees the Dux, who is this man in his mid to late 50s. His dark hair is peppered with silver. He's dressed in finely made clothes, and he stands with an upright back. There are a number of individuals around him listening to him talk, and as Benn is passing by, I think he slows down to listen to what they're talking about. So first of all, is he in conversation with any other members of the Council of 12? I think it is probably very likely. Another low roll, so that's a 5, which is an exceptional yes. So he is in conversation with another member of the Council of 12. And I think because it's an exceptional yes, it makes sense that it is Cavo de Soto, who is Baccio de Fara's uncle. And so I think the Dux and Cavo are having this very intense conversation between the two of them. And I think Cavo is this man who is like reed thin. He is also looking sort of pallid and sickly, but unlike Baccio, who looks as though he's getting over some sort of sickness, Cavo looks like he is in the midst of this sickness, and he is definitely like leaning on a cane. He's sweating profusely, and there are definitely a couple of his servants who are like hovering close by just in case the man decides to collapse. But I think in this moment, he's trying to sort of appear healthier than he actually is. So he's probably got makeup or something on him to try and disguise the fact that he does look sickly. And he's having this conversation with the Dux, who is a rather like hale and healthy man. And I think they are talking back and forth. And what are they talking about? What thing in the city are they discussing? So let's go ahead and roll on action and subject to see if that gives us an idea. 60, abuse, and 43. Abuse competition. Okay, so Cavo is probably trying to convince the Dux to give him some sort of preferential treatment over a rival. And I think we need to know what Cavo's business is, what he focuses on in the city in order to know what this is about. Let's go ahead and roll on the hobbies table of Maze Rats and see if this gives us an idea of what he's working on. 3 and 4. So foreign cultures. I think maybe Cavo is a diplomat. I think maybe Cavo is the lead diplomat who traveled to the negotiations with the city-state of Davenar and is perhaps the architect of the end of the war. So this would give him a fair amount of power in the city. And I wonder if there is someone else who did not want the war to end. And I think that would probably be the leader of the Vixilia War College, First Admiral Escon de Kenza. And so I think it's as Benn is passing by, he overhears Cavo de Soto saying something along the lines of, "Jordan, please, we cannot allow these warmongers, such as First Admiral de Kenza, to shake this already fragile peace that we have with Davenar. My lord, I don't know why you would agree with the Admiral to send ships out. It seems like a foolish task. We could endanger this peace that we already have." And I think the Dux says, "I understand your concerns, Cavo, but it is important that we find those Vidala and that we ensure that they do not cause any other trouble in our city. I don't understand why pursuing them out into Davinaran territory is a wise course of action. They have left the city. They surely cannot do us any more harm." Pardon me, my lord. I don't understand it. And the Dux again sort of waves his hand and says, "I understand, Cavo, but please, you must understand my position. They threatened the security of Heartvale. They must be caught and punished. The decision has been made." And this conversation continues on as Benn moves past. As he's moving past the Dux and Lord De Soto, I imagine he's going to come across another conversation as he's now about like halfway around towards where the captain is standing by this fountain. So we're going to go over to the fate chart and we're going to ask the fate chart, does Benn come across another group of nobles, another group of counselors from the Council of 12 talking about the state of the city? And I'm going to say that, again, it's 50-50. So chaos rank of 7, 50-50. 48 is a yes. So what are they talking about? I'm going to go ahead and, once again, I'm going to roll on the hobbies table of the Maze Rats characters. I like this table because it has a bunch of different things that would make sense for nobles or high-powered merchants to be interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and roll on this. 6 and 4. Theater. They're discussing the theater. So I think as Benn is making his way through, he comes across Draza Bellary. And Draza is another member of the Council of 12. And what is Draza's appearance like? I'm going to go ahead and roll up some details here because I don't have a good sense of what this character looks like. So appearance is 5 and 1, sinewy, okay. And physical details, 5 and 2, oiled hair, perfect. What kind of clothing do they have? 5 and 5, which is practical, interesting, okay. And then personality, 2 and 5, grumpy. Okay, so this person, Draza Bellary, is, I'm going to say, maybe like in their 40s. And they are thin and sinewy with this oiled hair, and their clothes are practically designed, but I think they're well made. And they are having this conversation as Benn is walking past with Ephron Fellhart. And I think Benn recognizes the counselor, but doesn't necessarily recognize who the counselor is talking to until I think Ben sees some emblem that's stitched into this man's clothing, and he recognizes the symbol of the Royal Dispatch Company, also known as the Kingsword, which is this company that basically gathers news and information from the region and sends out town criers on the various street corners to dramatize and perform these bits of news. And the Kingsword are known as being sort of tastemakers when it comes to theater, as well as being the leading source of news for citizens in Heartvale. Ben himself discovered that the Crest were in town in that very first episode because he heard a Kingsword crier talking about them looking for recruits. And I think that as Ben is walking by, he hears Draza Bellery complaining about something with the theater. And let's go ahead and roll action and subject again, see what they're complaining about. 96, guide, and 26, guide the physical. Guide of the physical. Okay, so I think what this is that Draza is saying, you know, I just recently saw a performance of Artus Vixilio, Captain of Heartvale, and I must admit it was somewhat lacking in its refinery on the shipwork. It didn't quite capture my imagination, and I must tell you it was very disappointing to see that they hadn't brought in and constructed a real ship like the production I saw 3 years ago. It just, it seems as though the theaters in town are failing. They're fading away. The artistry is just dissipating. And Ephraim Fellhart is standing there, sort of eyes glazed over, drinking quickly from his drink as Ben passes by and sort of shakes his head a little bit at the theatrical criticism. Now, there are probably many more conversations that Ben overhears as he makes his way towards where Captain Netheridge is standing by this fountain. But I think he's focused on reaching his destination, and so he isn't going to linger over any more of these conversations. When he walks up, the captain sips on his drink and gives Ben a side glance and says, "Winestone?" Ben says, "Captain." The captain says, "How are you enjoying the party?" He says, "Oh, I'm enjoying it immensely. It is quite a party." And the captain gives him a small smile and says, "I've seen better. But, yes, I suppose it is quite the party. Hopefully it continues like this." Ben says, "Yes, about that. I've heard some gossip that there may be some interest in our presence here." The captain gives him a sharp look and says, "Oh? Interest in what way?" "Just some curiosity, sir. Nothing I think we need to worry about." The captain nods and says, "Very good. Well then, Winestone, continue enjoying." So while they are talking, does anyone of interest enter either the courtyard or approach them? Again, I'm going to say it's 50-50. 16, which is almost an exceptional yes, but is a yes. The yes answer here is that somebody of interest does approach them. Is it the man of the hour, Bacchio de Fara? I think it is probably unlikely that he would directly approach Captain Netheridge here. So yeah, I'm going to say it's unlikely. 87 is a no, so it's not Bacchio de Fara. So if it's not Bacchio de Fara, the man of the hour, then it's got to be the other person of interest who is currently at this party. And that is the red-haired woman. She approaches as the captain and Ben are finishing up their conversation, and she approaches Captain Netheridge and says, "Good evening, Captain. May we have a moment?" And the captain nods and sort of gives Ben a look, and Ben steps to the side, acting as a footman. He stands slightly off and is therefore able to hear this conversation, but is not, at least at the moment, a part of it. The captain looks at the red-haired woman and says, "Apologies, my lady, but I am still new to this town. I believe you have me at a disadvantage. You know who I am, but I don't know who you are." And she sort of laughs and says, "Oh, but of course. I am Lady Wilhelmina von Triken." And at that, the captain's spine sort of straightens a little bit more as he stands a little bit more upright. And does Ben know who this woman is? I think it is a sure thing that he knows who she is. Chaos factor of 7. 67 is a yes, absolutely he knows who she is. The von Triken family is one of the most powerful families in Heartvale, and most importantly, it is an open secret that Lady von Triken is the leader of the Shade, and that she is a powerful sorceress, a member of the Council of 12, and for a variety of reasons is oft referred to as the Red Fox. The captain looks at her and then offers a bow and says, "It's an honor to meet you, my lady." She waves a hand and says, "How is your evening going?" "It is going well, and how is yours, my lady?" She smiles and she says, "I'm glad to hear that your evening is going well. I was beginning to grow concerned. You seemed as though your footman was not in attendance for a moment, and I didn't want you to go thirsty." The captain raises his glass and says, "Well, I seem to have made my own way to the drinks." She smiles and says, "And he has returned. That is good." She looks around, and Ben definitely gets the sense that she is checking to make sure that no one is even close enough to be eavesdropping. Her eyes once again sort of cross his, and she holds his gaze for the barest of heartbeats. But there is this like knowing smile, this glint in her eyes. And she says, "Might I suggest you and your fellows remain until the end of the party and enjoy the pyrotechnics? They are going to be quite extraordinary, and I certainly wouldn't want anyone to say that members of the Crest bowed out early from the party of the season." The captain looks at her and says, "We have no intention of leaving, my lady." She says, "Good, I'm glad to hear it. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the party." And she turns and walks away. So we know that this presence, whatever it is that is within Bacchio de Fara, is awakening, that it has taken notice of Arid the few times that he has cast magic in and around the estate, and it noticed the departure of the artifact from the estate. What we need to know right now is there's a difference between noticing that things are going on and being aware enough to take action. And I don't know if this presence is aware enough to take action. So we are going to ask the fate chart, and this is a very, very important roll. Has the presence woken inside Bacchio Defara? I think because of the various things that have happened to sort of alert it to things going on around the estate, it can't be any less than 50-50. So the question is it likely or somewhere in that range that it is waking up? Because I have an idea for what this thing is, I'm going to say it is just flat 50-50. Because it is a bit of a challenge to awaken something like this. And so I think these various things that have fallen under its notice make it so that it's not unlikely that it's awakening, but it's not making it more likely. So I'm just going to go with a flat 50-50, which is still like a 75% chance of getting a yes. So has the presence awakened? 50-50. Chaos rank of 7. 36. Yes. The presence has awoken. Benn is standing off to the side, observing the captain talking with the Red Fox. And they are having this very veiled back and forth. And I think Benn notices some movement on the far side of the courtyard. It's Bacchio Defara. He is walking through the crowd. And what draws Benn's attention is that there is an intensity and focus to his face that is not fitting with this party. And he is making his way through the crowd. People are trying to like come up and talk to him, and he's just walking straight past them. And at that point, Benn notices that he's not even walking sort of leaning on his cane like he has been the last few times that Benn has seen him. No, he is carrying the cane, and Benn can almost sense the ferocity with which he is gripping it. Now, this presence is awake inside of Bacchio Defara, and it has tasted of Arid's magic. So here's the next question for the fate chart. Is Arid visible in some supernatural way to this creature? And I think, first of all, before I roll in the fate chart, that Arid is attempting to cloak his presence, because I think he can sense this going on. So he's trying to cloak his presence in magic. So I'm going to roll Harness the Unspeakable Power plus Arcane, which is +2. Here we go. 5 on the dice plus 2 is a 7. So on to 7 and 9. The MC will hold 1 and may spend it on one of the following. The power knows what you're doing and why you're doing it. The power asks for something minor in return. The power requests some small show of loyalty. Okay, so he is successful on this hit in being able to cloak himself, but I think that this is going to require something in return. And I'm going to turn in that 1 hold right now as harm, as it is like visibly straining him to attempt to focus on this. And he is on the other side of the courtyard. Benn like looks around for him, and his magic is cloaking him from this like magical sight, but it is not cloaking him from visual sight. So Benn sees him on the other side of the courtyard and sees that D'Fara is headed in that vague direction. So because I got a success on Harness the Unspeakable Power, I'm going to give Arid a little bit of a better chance at being seen on this, but because he didn't get a complete success, he is struggling to maintain this magic around him. So I'm going to say that it is unlikely that the presence within Bacchio D'Fara can see Arid and like sense where he's located. So can the presence detect Arid? I'm going to go unlikely. Here we go. 49 is a yes. Yes, it can. All right. So Benn is watching as D'Fara makes his way through the crowd, and now it becomes clear that he is heading straight for where Arid is. Benn steps forward and says, "Captain, I think we have a problem." And he nods in the direction of D'Fara, heading towards where Arid is standing by one of the hedges. And I think the captain swears under his breath and then says, "How could he know?" And the Red Fox, looking over, has this very intense look of focus on her face as she is examining Lord D'Fara, and she says, "There is something not right about him. There is strong magic emanating from him, and I don't know him to have the talent. This is concerning. Captain, I rescind my previous statement. Perhaps you and your crew should leave immediately." And she is going to make her way across towards D'Fara to try and cut him off before he reaches Arid. There's starting to be a little bit of a hubbub now in the party as people are getting brushed off by D'Fara as he's stalking across the courtyard. And there's some murmuring going on. People are kind of like watching to see where he's going. And I think Benn looks around and sees on the far side of the courtyard from where he and the captain are, Lephalia also moving towards Lord D'Fara with a look of curiosity, I think, is what she has on her face. And Benn says, "Captain, what do you want me to do?" The captain says, "Get Arid and get out of here. I'll deal with the rest of this." And the captain is going to look and spot Saga, and they exchange a quick series of hand signs and then begin making their way around to meet up with Lephalia. Benn is probably, 30 feet away from where Arid is leaning up against a hedge. And Arid is not paying attention. He's focusing very hard to make sure that he's staying invisible. So he hasn't yet noticed that the Lord D'Fara is making his way towards him. And Benn is going to try and cross over quickly enough to make it to Arid's side before Lord D'Fara arrives. And I think this is going to be face duress. So this is +2 as Benn is pushing his way through the crowd and making his way towards where Arid is standing. 3 on the dice, +2 is a 5. That is a complete miss, which means that he is not going to make it before Defara has reached him. The sun sets on the horizon as a man sifts through old ruins of a village. He is pulling at a pile of rocks, carefully setting them aside as he goes. There are old scraps of clothing mingled with bones buried beneath the pile. A ray of fading sunlight catches a piece of metal in the pile and glints. The man exclaims in excitement. Dirt and rocks crunch as another figure joins the digger. This man is dressed in fine clothes and carries an ornate cane. He says, "What have you found?" The digger points at the metal and carefully pulls away more stones, revealing the outline of a metal box with the symbol of a beetle etched onto the surface. Let me see," the noble says, crouching down and peering at the box. "Ha! It is! That symbol belonged to an old god, long destroyed, but it proves that his worshippers were here in Othral. Utterly fascinating." He reaches forward with excitement and takes hold of the box, pulling with effort as stone grinds against metal. There's resistance for a heartbeat, and then it gives way and he falls back with a sharp crack. The nobleman screams as he looks down at his own leg, where the metal has stabbed into his thigh. The box is slightly ajar, and a sickly, strange sap spills out onto his thigh and into the wound. Lord Baccio Defara stares at his leg for a moment, chest heaving, and then his eyes roll back, and darkness takes him. Arid is standing off by himself, close to this hedge, and he is focusing on trying to keep his presence shielded. He hears a voice call out his name, and he opens his eyes as he sees the party laid out in front of him. He sees Baccio Defara charging through the crowd at him, eyes ablaze with this sickly green flame. He can see Benn to his left, struggling to get through the assembled partygoers who are now retreating away from Lord Defara as this weird fire is pouring out of his eyes. There are screams now as people realize that something is going horribly awry. He can see Lephalia trying similarly to approach, but she is too far away. She's also shouting something, but in the chaos, he can't hear it. He looks at Baccio Defara as the nobleman's facial features have twisted into a snarling rage, and this booming voice emits from him and says,
"What have you done?"
The hand that is holding the staff rises up, and the hand comes down, and all of a sudden, something happens. 6 and a 3 on our magic table is going to be a physical element and an ethereal form. So the physical element is 1 and 4, blood, and the ethereal form is a 6 and a 2. A torrent of blood pours out from this staff and courses through the air at Arid as his eyes widen, and he is going to attempt to harness the unspeakable power to defend himself from this torrent of blood that is coming in at him. And this is going to be plus arcane, which is plus 2 for him. 7 on the dice, plus 2 is a 9. So once again, he is successful and able to basically, he draws on the hedge around him, and the hedge grows and extends and forms a shield around him as this blood crashes into it. Some of it spatters through, and I think Arid coughs a little bit. And there is a moment as he feels the blood on his face where he's taken back to his youth in Anshwar and his time spent close to the wall when creatures unlike anything he had seen before breached it and were charging across the open countryside, claws slashing and opening up the bodies of his friends and neighbors. As blood is thrown about, he is taken back in that moment, and then he's back. He's back here in the present as the pieces of the hedge are torn apart, and Bacchio Defara no longer looks fully human. He seems to have grown in size, is now 2 or 3 feet taller than he was before, and this fire is coursing out of his eyes, and this blood has stained the white sleeve of his coat black as he raises his hand once again. And then all hell breaks loose. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures, and thanks so much to Syrinscape for the lovely ambient sounds and music throughout the episode. If you enjoyed the show, please tell anyone and everyone in your life about it. And if you haven't already, please rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really does help others find me. If you want to interact with me, my handle on Instagram and Twitter is @ErrantSoloPod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.